Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start our next session of the day.
Yes.
Please, hang on, I'll Please welcome Tam Hanna from Tam Holdings. He's going to be talking about Qt on Android.
Yes. Sadly, it looks like my microphone has failed. Or can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Then I'd suggest we're going to get started. We're going to be looking today at Qt for Android and Symbian, and basically at how to use Qt as a cross-platform development system. And we are going to start looking, who am I? Well, CEO of Tam Limited and Tam Holding. We changed structures. We mainly do content for mobile, so consulting, scientific books. If you look at the German IT newspaper, you find the same picture in many stories. So basically, we supply in the media area mainly as consultants. And today, we will go over basically how to use Qt in the mobile space. We will focus on Android, but we will also look at some of the other operating systems. As I said, there is Symbian, MeeGo, Tyson, WebOS, and there will also be some wrap-up explaining some hints on how to get the most out of the mobile market. So I would suggest, first of all, we look who is in the mobile space. Who of you has already used Android in the past and knows what Android is about? So I see a few hands, then I have to apologize because I was told that I should introduce Android also. Well, Android is the largest mobile operating system by share. The figures which I'm showing you here are for the devices shipped in the third quarter of this year only. And you see Android, basically 3 of 4 smartphones today is powered by Android. And then iOS is next. And if we see Symbian, the little green wedge on top, I'd suggest some applause for Nokia for destroying themselves, because 2 years ago, the big part would have been green and the small part would have been blue. So 1 round of applause for Nokia, please. Well, Android is a fully open operating system. So this means essentially you can pick up your Android phone and it'll run any kind of garbage app which you want to run on it, if you allow it to do so. This, of course, has some implications which we will go over in a few minutes. For now, all we have to say is that there is no permission model in Android. So essentially, every Android application can do everything which it wants to do on the device, as long as that doesn't require root rights. Android actually is a Java-based operating system. So applications run in a special virtual machine, it's called Dalvik, and especially in version 4, the performance offered actually is pretty high. But in addition to that, you also get access to C++ code via NDK. It's called the Native Development Kit, and it allows you to create C++ routines and to invoke them from Java. Has anybody of you ever used this before? So we have only 2 people, so, well. Now I expect to see some objects flying in my direction. Well, Android being an open platform, basically, let's assume anybody, who of you is willing to be my victim? This beautiful guy here. You won't be beaten, don't worry. Is there a Nokia employee here? Okay, let's assume that there would be a Nokia employee here. Theoretically, the Nokia employee could become sensible and could call up in China, hey, I need 50,000 mobile phones, and could start selling his own mobile phone, call it Conker, and actually make some money with it. So this means that there are hundreds and hundreds of Android devices on the market, and they are different. You have large screens, you have small screens, you have square screens, you have rectangular screens, you have upward rectangular screens, blah, blah, blah. And in addition to that, the open nature of the operating system also leads that you have many stores. In China, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of application stores where you can basically upload your app and hope that the accounting is somewhat fair. But the fragmentation talk, it's essentially mostly the media needing something to write about. So the practical relevance for developers is rather low. I mean, we had Palm OS, and Palm OS was fragmented as well. There were 60 different APIs for the screen, for example. So this is not a new problem. And if you have been in the mobile space long enough, it is not something which should be a problem for you to tackle. Do we have any questions so far? Anybody has any problems with fragmentation, maybe? Okay, looks like this is a pretty smart audience, or they are afraid of me. Well. So, the main reason why you guys are here is Qt for Android. Qt for Android, it's a completely community-driven port. 2011, a Romanian guy called Bogdan Vatra, who should be speaking here instead of me, but wasn't able to do so for business reasons, got fed up with Nokia and decided to port Qt to Android. And eventually, because the product went well, the people from KDE decided, hey, actually, why shouldn't we acquire them? And so it became more or less a project which is part of the KDE desktop environment. And it's very important that next to no success or support was received from Nokia. And that Nokia strategy is very stupid. Well, a little comic should prove this accurately. It shows the relationship between the, I hate PowerPoint, between the Chinese vendors, between Microsoft, and between our good friends at Nokia's, whose brain obviously is fleeing already. So any Nokia employee, if you see him, shoot a few bullets through his head, because he will keep on walking. I mean, he might lose some blood and the vacuum implosion might kill you, but the Nokia employee will keep on walking. No, I mean, I'm dead serious. With complete idiocy on the end of Nokia. I mean, if we look at it this way, Microsoft essentially has nothing to do except fuck around with the prices for the operating system. They have no leeway over the Chinese vendors, and they have no leeway whatsoever, basically, over anything. And you see, the Chinese, they can attack Nokia with a variety of venues. They can stop providing them with components. They have better carrier relations. They can cross-subsidize, and so on and so on. And the Chinese can also attack Microsoft by simply offering Linux notebooks. So essentially, the Nokia Windows strategy is idiocy. They should have stuck with Qt. Or is anybody disagreeing with me here? I see somebody's filming me in the background. Admit it, you're a Nokia employee.
I'm from Microsoft.
Stand up that we can see him. He's a poor soul. Stand up. This is a professional victim.
I'm kidding, of course.
Oh, he's from Samsung. So.
Yeah. I got you.
Well, I mean, I was thinking that maybe you'd like to be beaten or something like that. Also, let's be honest, a Microsoft mobile manager, I can't beat him. I pity him. He's sorry. I will bring you some alcohol or something. I'm sorry. It is a very difficult job. But either way, we have to get serious again. And one of the most important questions is, how was that port realized? Traditional ports required significant work because the components had to be redone. So you had a button, the Q button. The Q button had to be wired to a native platform, and so on and so on. And the LightHouse module really is helpful in this area. The LightHouse module essentially is a teeny tiny window manager which renders its content to the screen. So essentially, all you need to port is a little wedge which takes a bitmap, blows it to the screen, and takes input from the screen and blows it to the bitmap. It's a tiny wedge, it's 400 lines of code or so, and this makes porting really easy, but has some implications, which we'll go over later. So far, so good. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. Then we are going to start getting started. Anybody recognize the fountain, maybe? Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. So, either way, if you want to get some development done with Qt for Android, you can use Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. However, I personally would advocate you guys to use Ubuntu Linux, basically the 11 version, it's the most stable one. Just get yourself VMware and run it inside Windows. I mean, I have that on my machine, but the machine is incompatible with the garbage they have provided me, so I can't show it to you. But I can guarantee you that the performance is more than satisfactory with Windows 7 and emulation. So I would recommend you to use Linux. And basically, Qt for Android requires the OpenGDK and Ant. So these are the first two steps. You just open the terminal and get yourself Ant and OpenGDK. When we're done with that, it's time to do the actual installation. This is something where I can provide you the slides later on if you want to. The thing is this. Anybody of you who wants the slides, just walk up to me later and I will give them out to you all. And the next step, it's basically the graphical setup. Nowadays, it's very, very easy. You just download the alpha installer, you mark it to be executable via chmod, and then you run it. And in the next step, you get an automatical deployment wizard, which even downloads the SDK for you. So it's essentially a one-click process. It downloads 2 GB of data, and you are ready to run. And starting Necessitas also isn't difficult. You just switch into the installation folder, into the Qt creator folder, into bin, and then you launch the Necessitas script. Those of you who are more advanced can also use a shell script. I always have my wife type the orders in for me. Annette, start Necessitas, please. Hey, it's advanced technology. Basically, it's my experience was it's more reliable if you run the super user. Don't ask me why, but it works better. That's my experience. Debugging makes less problems because the ADB system is a problem, the connecting garbage thingy. So, with that, we get to some of the internal structure. We're going to start out with the most common problem of Qt in mobile. Qt, for legal reasons, has to be updated at least once a year. There was this deal with the Free Qt Foundation. Basically, if Nokia, Digia, or whoever owns Qt stops providing updates, after 1 year, they lose the rights to the intellectual property. And so due to that, about every half year, you get an update. Sometimes a teeny tiny update, sometimes it even breaks things, but they have to do the updates to keep the contract satisfied. And so the problem is, first of all, we've got 50 different libraries, and secondarily, Qt is rather large. It can become 7 megabytes or more. And so even though today's mobile phones have quite some memory, it still makes sense to manage the libraries. And the solution for that is a special program called Ministro. Ministro, it's application which is available on the Samsung App Store today and on Google Play, and which will become available on other app stores in the future. Basically, if you need it on some app store, you hit up Bogdan and Bogdan copies it there for you. And your app, when it starts, it launches Ministro, and Ministro checks with the application whether libraries are needed. And if libraries are missing, as you can see here in this case, they are downloaded automatically from a server provided by KDE. So this means that the user always has the libraries which he needs on the phone. And with this, we have the structure. We see here we have Ministro, and if the application starts, it starts up a little Java wedge, and the Java wedge basically jumps into the native code. That's the structure which you have it here. And there is one more very interesting thing, which is the sniffing feature. The latest versions of Ministro analyze the GUI stack of your phone and adapt the look of the buttons and so on to make it look like a native app. An example for this is this ugly thing here. Who recognizes the radio buttons? I mean, come on, one of you must recognize them. Which manufacturer has these ugly radio buttons? Yes, but which manufacturer?
Samsung.
You heard it? Samsung has ugly radio buttons. You heard it? Beat him. Actually, it's not Samsung, but I'm giving another round of advice. They live high in the north and they hate business customers. Who knows it now? Anybody an idea?
It's a Symbian.
No, sadly it's not Symbian. Well, I'm gonna solve it for you. It's the garbage producers commonly known as Sony Ericsson. Literally, if a phone breaks down with Sony Ericsson, it happened to me, they pick it up, destroy it on the way back, they call it special assistance and special service, and they consider it a successful case of phone repair if they break the phone in half but fix the keyboard. No joke, I'm dead serious. Avoid Sony Ericsson like the plague. I called them for 2 hours. My lawyer called them, and they were, but we did what he wanted. We picked the phone up. That we destroyed it. Oh, that we didn't know that. Either way, you see that the apps look pretty native nowadays, except for the message boxes. The message boxes, they still don't look like they should look. They are still stuck on the very top of the screen. But another problem which has been fixed, now the input is native. So whatever input solution the user has, whether it's touch bar or the swipe or whatever garbage he wants, when he taps a text box, automatically the input system of his choice is activated. And finally, one more warning for the Symbian developers among us. Qt for Android does not support soft keys. So there are no soft keys in Qt for Android. Okay, so far any questions, any feedback? Yes, in the back, please.
How are the application security settings from Android managed? So if I have an application, normally
Yes.
the application is create what rights it needs, for example, to access some stuff. How is this managed with QtDLs? Because I download the QtDLs and then I have another application. Do I have the rights for the QtDLs, or I have no to manage?
In your application, an NDK application, essentially it is like a native application written in Java. It also contains a manifest. And you can set inside of how should I say, of Necessitas, you can set the permissions which you need. So essentially you treat your application permission problem just like you would treat it with a Java application. You simply change the manifest settings.
So the QtDLs, if the QtDLs are downloaded, I have. Which rights do they need actually? Though?
Well, they are provided to you ready with all rights handled by Necessitas. Essentially, the Ministro product downloads for you the libraries ready for deployment, handles rights and everything.
Yeah, the problem is that maybe the rights are too broad.
Well, let me put it this way. The rights system in Android is not like the rights system in Symbian. The rights system in Android essentially has only one effect. I will show it to you if I have the slide here. No, I don't have the slide here, so I will have to explain it. The whole effect of the rights system in Android is that during installation of the application, the user is shown a list of settings. But practical experience shows they click yes, yes, yes anyways. I mean, test it with me with an app offering free Red Bull, or test it with any woman offering a free Louboutin shoes. I mean, even if the app wants access to blowing up the phone, she'll probably like, yes, free shoes. Well, I'll be completely honest with you. The few users who don't, fuck them. Is your question answered, or do you have some more? Can you repeat? Can you repeat, please? I didn't, you know, in mobile, it's very important that sometimes you just, as they say in German, alle Zähne gerade lassen. If there is 1% of pesky users, just ignore them. There is every day 100,000 new Android users standing up out of the grave.
Not the answer to the question, right? So, I mean, there are several areas where you need to handle this rights.
Yes, I can check this for you. I will give you my business card later on. I will send you a more detailed answer, answering your questions completely via email. It would get too deep into the Android system here. If anybody wants to leave to see the other thing, that's the email address. You can reach me here. Send me any questions which you have, and I will answer them for you in considerate detail. Okay. So we get back to the project-specific settings. First of all, there's the configuration of the baseline. Essentially, this decides what is the basic version of Android which you want to support. You can set up the package name, version code, and so on. Essentially, it's just properties for the manifest, which it's easier to change them using the graphical editor compared to changing them by hand. Next up is the application optics. This is a relatively confusing dialog because it allows you to set 3 icons: large, medium, and small. And this is important because it is not shown anywhere in the documentation. It took me some time to figure it out. This is the correct sequence. The large one is on the left, the medium one is in the middle, and the small one is on the right. So you click the button and it offers you select an icon. Next up, we have the permission dialog, which was already discussed before. Here you have a selection of all the Android permissions, and you can simply add them as you want to add them. And as we already said, the permissions only signify what the application does and help the user decide. So there is not like under Symbian that under Symbian, for some things you need manufacturer acceptance. For example, if you want to access the private folder, you need the manufacturer of the phone to give you the permission. This is not there under Android. It's only for the list which is shown during setup. Then there is the library dialog. This should be logical for every Qt developer. You simply click this button after compilation and it gets set up automatically. And then finally, there is a signing system. Who of you has ever signed an application for Symbian? Good. Signing a Symbian application was an act where the application was provided with trust. So essentially, when Symbian app was signed, the Symbian app had more rights than the unsigned brethren. Under Android, this is not the case. Android applications, the signing only verifies the producer workstation. So for example, I can say this application was produced by this guy here and not by that guy. But there is no other transfer of rights or trust between vendor, operating system, and so on. And then finally, one more very important dialogue, the library management. During the debugging time, you also need libraries on the handset. And a variety of options are offered to deploy them. And I have to recommend you to always use Ministro when debugging. The reason for this is that the automatic library deployment, it's buggy. And in many cases, it blows a library onto the device which you cannot use. And then you get the typical class not found error when starting the application. The debugger shows nothing. This can cost you hours and hours and hours. So in practice, always use Ministro. You only need Wi-Fi once when you debug for the first time. Do we have any questions so far? Any feedback, any statements? Anybody want to throw some objects? Yes, please.
The Android manifest file is quite well documented by Google. So
yes.
If you're in trouble with these dialogues, then just have a look at the Android manifest and you can see whether you did the right settings.
Yes, basically, this is an excellent point, sir. There is, I said I would like to show, but I cannot because the garbage system doesn't allow me to connect the EliteBook to it. The thing is this, there is in fact a subfolder in the Qt project. It's shown in the Android substructure. I can show it to you later on. You find all the Android files there and you can even modify them there. So, is this answering your question sufficiently? Okay. Any other? Yes, please.
Just in your last slide, you showed that you cannot port your custom Qt libraries because it's buggy. If you have your custom Qt library, how do you handle it? Or if you want to deploy your own version of the Qt libraries, how do you handle it?
Well, it is different if you compile the library yourself. If you compile the library yourself, then you are responsible for compiling it in the right way. Then you can use the deploy local Qt libraries option. But if you simply use a downloaded version of the Necessitas SDK, like most of the people here will do, then it's best to use Ministro. As said, you have my email address. Get in touch with me afterwards and I will investigate this further. Any questions? Okay, then we will get on with the porting gotchas. So if you have some code and you want to port it, there are some problems which you have to keep in mind. The first one is the definition of the classes. Under Symbian, it has been customary to put the class name in front of the definition of methods. As you see here, I've tried to highlight it in red. This breaks the compilation process for Android and for MeeGo. So if you have old Symbian C++ code or an engine which was written for Symbian or by a Symbian programmer, this is a very, very common gotcha which you will have. But fortunately, it can be fixed easily. I had some medium to large applications. It took me 1 hour to fix it. So that's not a significant problem, but you have to know that the gotcha is there. The next problem is file include. File includes in Symbian are based on the position of the local file. So if I have a file which is 2 subfolders down, and I want to access a file in the native, in the root folder, I have to go up 2 levels. In the Necessitas suite, all the include paths are based on the location where the .pro file is sitting. So you also have to change the include paths when you port an application over. And an especially evil trap is in the UI files. If you use a custom UI component and you load it into the .ui file using the Symbian name specification, then the UIC will generate a non-compilable resource file which you have to edit by hand. The next thing is a classic. Is Q capital for Android or is Q not capital for Symbian? I know it sounds funny, but these kind of gotchas frequently occur when practically porting code. Then, of course, we are dealing with GCC, so we've got the usual garbage. If you do a switch case, then you should use these, you see here, to protect the variables. It's a nuisance, what do you want to say? And then, of course, for the more complex applications, you've got the specific features. If you have some native code for Symbian, it won't run under Android. If you have platform-specific files, it won't run under Android. The pro user files for Symbian won't work under Android, and there are no soft keys, as you already figured out. So, anybody of you has actually ported applications so far, maybe?
Just a very small one, and that was a half an hour's task, so without sensors.
Can you repeat, please? What was it?
I had no sensors in that application, so but it worked right out of the box.
Okay, so you see, if you write the code very carefully, it can be taken over even step by step. We have to say the guy is from a university, so he obviously codes much better than the average commercial developer, or at least, no, I mean, I'm dead serious about it. The code is cleaner. The code written at universities is cleaner because they have more time. I mean, if you have your wife sitting on your back because she really wants to win the competition with the company, then you'll code in a hurry. But at a university, there is no hurry. The only time when there is a hurry is if somebody comes there from a commercial company and sues them. Then they make hurry for a few minutes. So, who can determine the topic of the next part of the slides? This is an intelligence test. What's the Okay, we found the person who's intelligent. The rest of you are all asleep probably. Good morning. So, Symbian is essentially a dead operating system. No more new devices are produced, but these Symbian devices, the old quality Nokia build, they live forever. If you have a Nokia N8, it's now 4 years old, but it still is alive. And especially in Latin America, these devices are so popular. If you look at the Opera Mobile State of the Web report, you send me an email after the show and I will send you some data. In most of Latin America, the N8 still is the top smartphone, for example. And if you go on the street in Germany, you still see them, many of them. And developing for Symbian using Qt, it's actually pretty easy. You have the choice between two completely different IDEs. You can use Carbide or you can use Qt Creator. Most Symbian developers will prefer the Eclipse-based Carbide IDE because it's very mature and very reliable. Sadly, it doesn't really do good debugging of Qt apps, and Nokia artificially limits it to 4.6.2. This is an arbitrary limit by Nokia. We don't like Carbide developers anymore, and so we'll harass them. No, I mean, I'm dead serious. Nokia is actively harassing its partners. It's unique for a company in the tech space, but well. On the other, can you repeat, please?
Suicide in pieces.
In what?
In small pieces.
What is in small pieces?
Starting with killing the history of the older applications and throwing away the cute stuff, and then, well, we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, I mean, this really wasn't intended to be a Nokia talk, but let's be honest, what will happen with Nokia? They will become Microsoft's phone manufacturing company. They will produce garbage phones for Microsoft, which nobody wants, until somebody has mercy, caps Steve Ballmer, some shareholder will shoot him, and Microsoft will say, we don't understand mobile, we give up. We give up on ribbons and we'll bring back Windows NT4. And I bet the share price will rocket into the sky. Either way, when distributing Symbian applications, you've got only one venue which really makes sense. It's the Ovi Store. The Ovi Store from Nokia can drive huge, huge, huge download volumes. 1 million downloads can be reached like that. But there is no conversion rate. Ovi users are completely unwilling to pay. I know of multiple cases of companies which have achieved thousands of downloads and have a conversion rate of 1 to 1,000. And Nokia actually admits this problem. At Nokia World in the past, if you told them you were unhappy with your application sales, they told you, why do you sell the app? Make it free and put in some ads. And this being a Nokia product, it obviously has some problems. First of all, the device reach is very limited. So if you use Ovi Store and Qt, you can reach only about 12 mobile phones. And many popular devices, like the N95 or many of the E-series devices, are not supported. And finally, Ovi Store has a huge volume in China, but in China you get no money. If you sell an app for $1, you don't get 60% of the price, you get 3 cents. So really forget the Ovi Store in China. And one more thing, when developing a game, you better have a good friend at Nokia or a Nokia employee locked in your sauna, and you can threaten them, I will fry him if you don't promote me. The games are really dependent on promotion. If Nokia doesn't promote your game, you have no downloads. This is a few hundred downloads a day. The moment they start promoting you, you've got 10,000, 20,000, but the moment the promotion stops, you're back to 100 downloads a day again. This is very significant when you're developing games for Nokia. But fortunately, for applications, the situation is much more stable. If you have an application, after about a week, you have a download number, and this download number stays constant for months. This goes on like that for the next months. So with that, we're done so far. Next is Mego. Who of you has used Mego? Where are the Mego phones? So we really need some Nokia employee to show him the Mego phones, because you know, Mego is officially garbage, you know. I mean, Stephen Elop the Wise has spoken. Either way, Mego is essentially a dead platform, but the devices have sold pretty well, and so we have thousands of users who are, however, are pretty technically savvy. And this is a significant problem, because I'm going to put it this way. Who of you is more likely to recognize a problem in an app? This guy here, or the average 18-year-old female? Who bets on the female? Can you repeat?
Normally, users find the bugs because they will operate a program in a way that a programmer never thinks of.
Well, of course, I agree, but I was not so much referring to bugs, I was referring to lack of quality. For example, if you have a calendar, you have a recurring calendar function. The recurring calendar function, it's used by professionals, male or female alike. But the average rapper who only thinks about grabbing his crotch and singing, he'll never use the feature. I mean, I'm just honest with you guys. I'm in the mobile industry for so long, I simply don't take any bullshit anymore. It's as easy as that. So, Jolla plans a device, but the device is for the Chinese market. And as already figured out before, making money in China is very difficult. So, I wouldn't waste much time on Mego, but if the app ports over easily, I mean, if there is a fruit hanging low and you're hungry, why don't you pick it up? Next up is Tyson. Who's ever heard of Tyson? Our Samsung guy? doesn't put up his hands. He's ashamed, apparently. Can you repeat?
I haven't heard about Tizen.
Okay, this shows the importance of Tizen for Samsung. This is officially Samsung's next generation mobile operating system. And here we have a Samsung representative sitting who's never heard of it. I mean, that recommends some applause, I would suggest. Can you repeat?
Samsung haven't joined Tizen.
Oh yes, they promote the product significantly. But either way, it was just a joke. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I was just trying to be funny. Tizen, it's essentially a warm-up of WebOS from HP. It's essentially a Linux kernel which runs a web browser. I mean, HP failed at it. Palm failed at it. Why do they have to try it? I don't know. Either way, they need the web runtime engine from somewhere, and so they take it from Qt WebKit. So there is Qt on every Tizen device, but it's not sure whether it will be offered to third-party developers in the first edition. However, there will be a C++ runtime for BADA compatibility, so it should only be a question of time until when an unofficial port pops up. Next, we've got WebOS. Who of you ever used WebOS? Here in the back, we've got one person. These guys need some applause for the palm freeze. Well, WebOS is not as dead as one might think. First of all, HP has poured so much money into the platform that they are not willing to kill it. I mean, they've wasted $1 billion. 50 million more doesn't matter to them anymore. And secondarily, I mean, it's the same with the banks. With the banks, they build the expensive, huge properties, and then they leave them empty. Because if they demolish them, then they have to take them out of the books. But if the property is empty, it technically is still an activa on the books. So this is mainly a bookkeeping kind of trick. But there is also a cooperation going on with LG. So in the near future, it is very likely that WebOS will be used to power LG's smart TVs in an attack on the Samsung Maple platform. I didn't make up the name Maple. I'm sorry. It's somebody from Samsung should ask him what it means. They are smart TVs run on an operating system called Maple. M-A-P-L-E. Do you have something to write? Well, either way, there is an unofficial Qt port available for WebOS, and here you have the instructions how to use it. And with that, I already got the call. I've got 10 more minutes. It's going to be time to draw some conclusions. As we already figured out, the mobile space is fragmented. There is a huge number of platforms. And for a development company, it's very important to gamble the platform strategy correctly, because first of all, we don't know who wins. Microsoft might turn out lucky. And or they might bribe somebody. I mean, who knows? And it's also a battle for Mindshare. And C++ is a common baseline. C++ code is everywhere, even on the toy operating system and on the garbage operating system. No, I mean, I'm dead serious. My wife wants an iPhone for her birthday, and I want a smartphone. I told her, this is not a smartphone. You want a toy, then you can have it, but you have to call it correctly. Ended up buying a Samsung Galaxy, so kudos to the intelligence. I have to apologize to all the females who I always say that they use iOS. Some of them are smart. Well, for the individual developers, Mindshare is everything. You see here an application from my company which is offered for 2 legacy platforms. You might say this is idiocy. Why do you continue maintaining for a platform where you've got 50,000 users? Well, these 50,000 users, one day their old Nokia phone will break down. And then they will remember, Actually, I liked Tamogemon TouchCalc. I like the CEO who looks a bit crazy. I'm going to check if TouchCalc is available for my new device. And that way you get a loyal set of users who stay with you in the future. And Qt really saves time. It allows you to develop once, deploy multiple times with minimal debugging effort. It increases your mindshare. It increases your market presence. It increases your revenue. And in the worst case, you have to redo the GUI with QML. I thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll all thank Tam for a very honest talk there.
I have to use my notebook. Okay, 1 minute.
I think we'll open up the floor for questions. Questions?
I would like to hear some further jokes about Firefox OS.
Well, it's very difficult to make any jokes about Firefox OS because the operating system isn't even on the market yet. I mean, it's difficult to joke about something which doesn't even exist. I apologize.
Any other questions? Questions? Come on, you can't be that scared. Questions? Okay, then. Thanks so much, Tam.
Thank you all.
Thank
It was
you.
my pleasure, and that's that. Thank you.